Mondays, ruining a camping trip, and who among us hasn't wanted to drown a coworker?
Guilty.
This week's episode of Severance is arguably one of the strangest episodes of TV I've seen in a long time, and this is coming from a guy who's seen all of From.
Don't touch me, don't touch me!
What? Could Helena be pregnant? What will happen to Irv? And is Mark a secret descendant of Dieter Eagan? We'll be covering all of this and more as we journey to Woe's Hollow. But be sure to like and subscribe. These marshmallows are for team players.
Marshmallows are for team players, Dylan.
It makes sense this episode begins and ends with Irv. In fact, this shot completely encapsulates how alone he is. We're in the middle of an icy lake, and I gotta wonder how they got Irv's outie to agree to come all the way out here. As far as we know, Helly, or should I say Helena, was the only person not to wake up on this lake. She tells us she awoke on the cliff, a far safer choice for the woman set to take over Lumen. The lake itself, with its towering bluffs and thick ice, is reminiscent of the lake we see in the intro credits. The same lake that has this drowning car. Since Miss Casey died in a car accident, I wonder if there's a connection here. You'll notice our characters wear these Russian-inspired outfits. The Soviet Union was known for its one-party rule, repression, surveillance, and censorship, much like our innies face at Lumen, so this design choice is an apt one. Dylan is the only one to be stoked about being outside. Remember, he didn't get to experience the outside last season as he was too busy making sure the overtime contingency worked. But if things couldn't get any weirder, our innies are treated to a DVD video introducing them to ORTBO, or the Outdoor Retreat Team Building Occurrence. If you rearrange the first letters for this acronym, you get the word robot, which isn't ominous at all. There are a few interesting details here. For example, the image that appears on the title screen is the painting Keir invites you to drink of his water, which we saw in Season 1. You'll notice that the lakes in this painting vaguely resemble those of the Great Lakes. I'm curious if this place, which we'll find out is the Dieter Eagan National Forest, is the inspiration for this painting. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time Dieter has been mentioned. In episode 202, Milchik passes a bar which has a band named Dieter's Brother playing. It's pretty obvious that this video was recorded a long time ago, and not specifically for Mark, Helly, Irv, and Dylan. Milchik talks about our innies experience meadows, thickets, and brambles, which you can't really see or do here because everything's covered in snow. This retreat is in response to the innies' desire to see the outside world. However, I'm not entirely sure that's true. Lumen needs MDR to complete the Cold Harbor file, so having them away from work for 2 days is kind of a big deal. And we don't really know how much time has passed since we last saw Mark undergo reintegration. There could be significant developments that have happened we aren't privy to, as this episode is told from the innie perspective. Our innies are to follow the path Keir Eagan and his brother Dieter took as children, a story that is outlined in the mysterious 4th Appendix, text that is forbidden on the severed floor. The question of this tale's veracity is questioned by Helena, which is doubly interesting because she herself is an Eagan. Her holding no reverence toward it, unlike Milchik, suggests it's all bullshit. The innies are to make their way to the Scissor Cave, the same grotto where Keir tamed the 4 Tempers. We've seen a depiction of this in Keir Tames the 4 Tempers, a painting which once hung in Miss Casey's wellness office. You'll notice Keir is armed with a cat of 9 tails, each of the 9 knotted thongs representing Keir's 9 core principles.
Something about me is that I know all 9 core Lumen principles.
These principles are featured prominently at Miss Cobell's, and make sure to mark it down at home if you're playing Keir Bingo. The painting suggests that in order to tame the 4 Tempers, you'll need to master these 9 core principles. Irving is haunted by the temper known as Woe, represented as a gaunt bride half the height of a natural woman. In fact, this episode is titled Woe's Hollow, named after the place where Milchik says is the world's tallest waterfall. It never ceases to amaze me what frivolous things Lumen decides to lie about. The other 3 tempers are never really mentioned this episode. However, it's possible that Chapter 2 of Milchik's book, which he teases, titled The Thieving Nanny, may be a reference to the old lady representing dread. blood. Last episode focused heavily on goats, and a goat is represented by the temper Malice, so I would not be surprised if we start to dig deeper into Keir lore. The name Scissor Cave is also interesting. Scissors cut. Our characters have cut or severed minds, and Keir himself figuratively cuts himself off from his brother. Our innies are led by doppelgangers credited as shadows. They represent their innie's twin, much like Keir.
Keir's twin was always with him.
Traversing the harsh landscape, they find the coveted fourth appendix. It is the tale of Keir's twin brother, Dieter. The name Dieter derives from German meaning army or warrior of the people, a staunch contrast to Keir, which means the Dark One. We have to ask ourselves two questions. Did Dieter ever exist? And if he did he actually die? Dieter's death in the story is insanely unbelievable. It is said his eye spontaneously popped out and turned into sap, while his hair turned into moss and fell off. Since this story was allegedly written by Keir on his deathbed, it's highly probable this is the ravings of a man who is in the throes of mental illness. If I were a writer on this show, it would make for some insane TV if Dieter lived. Here's why. We know Keir Eagan and his offspring would go on to create Lumen and entrench itself into the everyday lives of the people. Dieter's name being Warrior of the People could create a whole opposing force to Keir and Lumen. His offspring would want to bring Keir down, and the thing that adds an extra element of drama is that they're all blood related. In the past, I've theorized that Helena and Mark might be related. How insane would it be if Mark was an ancestor of Dieter and Helen an ancestor of Keir? Remember, Mark's mother's name was Fern, a name associated with the forest, and where did Dieter want to spend all of his days? Yep, a forest. Mark's last name is Scout, and Scouts do all sorts of outdoor activities such as camping, hiking, and orienteering. Am I onto something here, or have I gone full Dieter? It would make sense that Keir depicts Dieter as a crazy masturbator who, quote,
spilt his lineage upon the soil.
I feel we're not getting the true story of what became between these two brothers. Also, the fact that they're twins makes this extra intriguing. They are two very different people in the same looking body, much like innies and outies inhabit the same body. The main conflict in this episode, however, is that between Irv and Helena. His distrust of her began all the way in episode 201 when she told her story of the Night Gardener.
A night gardener.
Over the course of 204, he'll go completely unhinged to prove that Helly isn't who she says she is, stating at the end the real Helly would never be that cruel. But more on that in a bit. Upon making their way to the Scissor Cave, the innies discover this macabre scene with Mark stating this is probably a dead seal. As far as we know, Lumen isn't anywhere near an ocean where seals need big bodies of water to feed. Then there's the state of its decomposition. I did some research and there are instances of mummified seals which kind of look like what we're seeing here. However, these are only found in the Arctic and Antarctic as the dry and cold climate allow for their bodies to be preserved. The leading theory is that some seals get lost during a snowstorm and can land as far as 40 miles away from the shore before succumbing to the elements where their bodies freeze to death. This golden hue might also be sap, as there is mention of Dieter's pus turning into it. However, that might be a bit of a stretch. But what do you think this thing is? And was it left there by Lumen? Milchik and Huang have dutifully set up 4 blue tents, blue the signifying color of the innie world. Take a look at Mark checking out the torch. This would be the first time he's ever experienced fire. Now, Helena tries to win over Irving by making him a cute snow seal, but when pressured into revealing the truth of who she really is, she does not budge. This is all setting the stage for the eventual fight that will lead Irving into the woods. And man, I love this show. You have Huang jamming out on a theremin. Not only does it sound creepy as hell, but the entire instrument is played without physically touching anything. The notes are manipulated through electromagnetic waves, not unlike how Ragabi manipulated these waves to reintegrate Mark. The whole thing is a metaphor for what's going on with our innies. Lumen is the player, and the innies the instrument to be played. While Milchik's story doesn't go over as intended, Irv continues on his crusade to reveal Helena's true identity. This ends with a scathing jab by Helena, calling him a lonely man, to which he ventures out into the frozen night. Meanwhile, Mark and Helena get intimate in what could have the biggest implications for the entire series yet. What if Helena gets pregnant? Think about how much drama that's going to entail if it were to happen. First, you'd have Helly sharing this body. In season 1, she attempted suicide because of how much she hated her outie, but if she's with child, another attempt is likely out of the question. Then there's Mark's moral dilemma. He is having sex with this woman while at the same time looking for his wife. Although, to be fair, it is his outie's wife. The whole thing is a beautiful mess that is chock full of drama. It actually gets me excited, not in a Dieter way, just on where this show could go. As far as we know, Helena doesn't completely reveal who she is to Mark, but in an act I think is a moment of candor, she says,
"Like who I was on the outside. I was ashamed."
We saw how she lingered on the kiss between Mark and her innie. There's some jealousy there. In the outside world, Helena has almost no autonomy. She does as she's told by her father and has been shaped by Lumen. Inside, however, Helly is her own person, unafraid to stand up to authority and be who she wants to be. While Helena may be free on the outside world, Helly is the one who has more freedom.
Helena is someone who has to wear a mask in front of people, whereas Helly is just, there's no mask, there's no filter.
There's this great juxtaposition between Mark and Helena all cozy and warm in the tent and Irv in the frigid cold. He experiences this surreal dream being drawn to the luminous glow of his macro refinement desk, just like the insects that swirl around it. Here, his co-workers include Bert and the Temper Woe. It makes sense he's haunted by Woe as his character is literally undergoing a great amount of sorrow and distress. The file on his computer is Montauk, a hamlet in New York State. There just so happens to be seals in Montauk, but maybe that's just a coincidence. Montauk may even be a nod to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Maybe in Montauk.
Another story which heavily involves the themes of memory and identity. We'll see the numbers on Irv's terminal morph into letters which spell out the name Eagan. You can even make out the shape of Helena's face. This is the final clue Irv needs to connect Helena with being an Eagan. Knowing the only person who'd have the power to send their outie to the severed floor is an Eagan, Irv takes drastic measures to prove to the others Helena isn't who she says she is. He demands that Milchick bring Helly back, and it's here Helena finally cracks and orders Milchick to do it. You'll notice she calls him Seth, his first name that we learned last episode only the outies know. Milchick calls over the radio for the removal of the quote Glasgow block. This is a very important detail. It proves to us that Helena never had the chip removed, rather there is a procedure that can be done to block the brain from switching over to its other severed half. Theoretically, this could mean innies and outies could bypass the switches found in the elevator and stairwell. Now, who was Milchick talking to on the radio? My money is on Miss Huang. However, I'd put a 1% chance it could be Gretchen, who we did see works in some sort of security or forest ranger type job, judging by her uniform. She also converses with her husband using radio terminology like copy that. With Irv having proven his point and putting the life of an Eagan in jeopardy, he is immediately dismissed. I found it interesting that when Helena switches over to Helly, we hear the elevator ding even though we aren't in the elevator. This was likely done to highlight to the viewer that there indeed was a switch. Now, Irv's dismissal is akin to a death sentence. By dismissing him, Lumen is essentially killing Irv's innie. While his outie's body remains, any remnant of any Irv will be gone. It's kind of fitting that it was Dylan who encouraged Irv to hang in there in episode 201, and now it's Irv telling Dylan to do the same.
Hang in there.
The conclusion of this event will no doubt have consequences for episodes to come. First, what will happen to Milchick? This was a royal fuck-up of the highest caliber which almost resulted in the death of the next Lumen CEO. Will he be fired, and will Cobell come back? With the secret that Helena was Helly, Helly can now catch up with Mark and Dylan about what she saw on the outside world, including her creepy talk with her dad at the end of the season 1 finale. That is, if they let her continue to work. We also don't know how Mark's reintegration fits into all of this. And what about Irv? The episode ends with him seemingly switching back to his outie. What is he gonna think when he wakes up to find Helly soaking wet, a furious Milchick, and these other people he's never seen before? I don't believe Irv's story is over. We still don't know what happened to him after he knocked on Bert's door at the end of season 1. Bert himself has been keeping tabs on him, and Irv makes cryptic phone calls to someone in the middle of the night. We know Irv's outie has been investigating Lumen from the maps and employee lists he keeps hidden in his home. Now that he knows what Mark and Dylan look like, maybe he'll try to contact them. With next episode titled Trojan's Horse, it's possible we'll pick up with Mark's reintegration, Mark being the Trojan horse in this scenario. We still don't know how much time has passed since Mark's reintegration and this retreat, so it's possible we could be doing a bit of a flashback as as we head into episode 5. With that being said, let's get into our trailer sleuthing section where we dive into the trailers to see what future episodes have in store. The trailers give us 2 distinct shots of Bert, who we know has been stalking Irv. Someone actually follows Irv from this car, and I'm guessing it's him. We also see someone who might be a new character heading to the exports hallway. It appears to be the same person who delivers Irv his melon party. Now, how can Irv be getting a melon party if he's been dismissed? Either this is a flashback or Cabell has taken over and demands Irv be reinstated, but I doubt Helena would want that considering she was almost killed by him. Speaking of Cabell, it doesn't look like she's back to Lumen just yet, as she's seen here investigating some underground tunnel. Maybe it could be a cave found in Woe's Hollow. Miss Casey makes a few appearances, however, every time we see her, it appears to either be some sort of hallucination or dream. I think we're looking at the return of Helly back to the severed floor. Just take a look at her clenched fists as she says the words,
What the hell?
We see Mark here in the break room hallway, but notice he's not wearing a suit, rather the same blue sweater we saw him wearing at Pip's. This is likely the result of his reintegration. Mark here at an Asian restaurant with Helena in the background. I wonder if Helena has to tell Mark's outie that the two of them made love. That's gotta be one super awkward conversation to have. It's also possible they're talking about Miss Casey, who outie Mark has been told is still alive. Here's Mr. Drummond talking to who I believe is Mr. Milchick, stating that his work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments on this planet. Rick and Hale likely getting to work on his revised version of the UUR. By the way, Apple has released this book on Apple Books, and it's also available in audio format. I'll be giving it a read to see if there are any clues. But now I turn it over to you. What do you think will happen next? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember,
I love you.